It was heartbreaking. These two innocent girls were viciously murdered.
A brutal killing.
Both victims were killed by asphyxiation, cord wrapped around their throats.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met at home.
You want to try to narrow in who's the last person in that apartment.
When you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies, that makes them even more of a suspect.
The truth will be revealed.
There was something psychologically wrong with him. Dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. New York, a place where anything can happen and where anyone can become someone.
It's a big city with plenty of opportunities.
This was the start. If you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere.
But behind the glamour lies darkness.
West Harlem in 1992.
It was during the holiday season coming up, December 19th, close to Christmas, and the call came into the homicide squad.
There was a complaint from the woman who lived in the apartment below about the water coming from the apartment above. The super went up to investigate, knocked on the door, no answer.
The apartment belongs to 20-year-old Nikki Silas and 19-year-old Britney Rojos.
After not getting any answer, he decided to go from the roof down to the fire escape. And when he looked into the apartment, he seen who he knew as Nikki laying in the bed. He thought she was asleep, so he was banging on the window. Banging hard and got no response, so he forced the window open. And he went to touch her to wake her up and realized she wasn't gonna wake up. She was dead. And he went towards the front where the water leak was coming from, and he found Britney's body floating in the tub.
He picked up the phone and called the police.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall of Manhattan North Homicide are assigned to the case. Inside the apartment, they find a grisly scene.
As you enter the apartment door from the hallway, to the left is a bathroom. You can see that there was a struggle. You see the sink dislodged and on the floor. And then you see Britney Rojos in the tub. She had her cord wrapped around her neck. We weren't sure at that time if that was the cause of her death. Was it that she was strangled to death, or did she drown? As you walk to the bedroom where Nikki Silas is on the bed, you can see that she was disrobed and she was dead. You couldn't tell at that time if there was a rape. You just seen her laying there. It was like she was asleep. And same thing, Nikki had a ligature cord around her throat.
That is strange when you find two bodies in one location. But this whole case was strange. I think they were good girls. They didn't deserve to die. By no means.
I think in any homicide case, a team of detectives see the side of the victim's family that's suffering for the loss of their child. And it's our job to put closure to it.
To solve the murder, detectives must piece together the last 24 hours of the victims' lives.
The ME gives you a time of death as close as they can, based on the temperature of the body, based on post-mortem. But at the time, during the initial crime scene, we didn't know that. We tried to get noise complaints if anybody heard anything. Tried a timeline of when this water leak started coming into the apartment. We found on the counter there was a receipt. On the receipt, it named a particular store in the neighborhood a couple of blocks away.
The receipt is time-stamped, December 19th, 1:15 a.m.
A team of detectives went there to talk to the night clerk that remember a female coming in to purchase some groceries about that time. So we knew that they were alive from the point of the receipt going forward.
The information gathered allows them to place time of death between 1:30 and 3 a.m.
The medical examiner told us that both victims were killed by asphyxiation. The assumption was that Britney was attacked sexually, but we just didn't have the concrete evidence. She was submerged in water, so if there was any DNA that was available, it was contaminated.
Detectives do find DNA evidence on Nikki Silas's body.
The ME couldn't say for sure that that DNA would be from the victim having sex with the murderer, or is it that she had sex with her boyfriend and he went off to go to work and then somebody came in and attacked her.
They send the sample from Nikki to the lab and continue to process the scene.
The apartment to me looked like it was in disarray. You could see that somebody ransacked the place. Maybe they came in and the burglar was already in the apartment.
But it wasn't a straight out robbery. The way the bodies were found, if it's a robbery, you don't hang around to rape anybody. You want to get your loot and get out.
It showed no signs of forced entry at the front door. So the question comes, okay, then they either had access to the apartment or were allowed in by one or two or both people living in the apartment.
Police then discover a handwritten note at the foot of Nikki's bed.
It said, train directions to and from Queens to Manhattan, and getting off at the exit closer to their house. We were determining if somebody was visiting the apartment that never been there before, that they needed directions. We didn't know if that was something old or new. You couldn't put a timeline. It didn't have a date. How significant at that time, we couldn't determine.
In most instances, a murderer doesn't just kill random people. There's usually a connection. And if there's more than one dead body at a scene, usually the police can determine whether or not the second person was just an accident, essentially, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
With no way to know which one was targeted, detectives start to trace both girls' contacts.
In most homicide cases, we always request the phone logs. You want to try to narrow in who's the last person that somebody in that apartment spoke to. Then you want to talk to that person or persons and say, well, did they indicate they were having problems with anybody? Normally, you can get them back in a short period of time. Now, keep in mind, this is December 19th. It's close to the holiday season. And at that particular time, they had an active kidnapping homicide case going on. So it delayed the phone records coming back on a timely fashion.
They now have the heartbreaking task of contacting the families.
It's hard to make notifications to a family member saying that somebody's deceased or passed away. You want to make sure that there's other family members and a support mechanism there that could help, because you don't know how they're going to react to it.
I was just going to bed, and the doorbell rang. There were 2 policemen there. And they said there's been an accident in New York. And at the time, I couldn't click it. I just couldn't think, well, Nikki doesn't drive, so it couldn't have been a car accident. And then when they came in and they told us, It was like somebody pulled the rug out from under me. And my husband just fell apart.
Detectives learned Nikki was a college student from Massachusetts, and Britney was from Queens.
Britney moved in with Nikki after Thanksgiving. Her mother still lived in Brazil. I just think she was all alone as far as having a parent around.
The family had mentioned that Nikki was into dancing and doing videos, and it was determined that she did a video with one of the Caribbean artists named Shabba Ranks.
They had ambitions of being in the show business world, the dancing and all the glitter that goes along with that.
I think that was her goal, to make contacts. If she got in the video, maybe she would have a chance to do some acting. She had been home that Thanksgiving, and she told me that she couldn't pay the rent anymore. So her plan was to finish college there for the semester and come home. She came home on the 22nd, but not the way I expected. She came home in a casket.
Detectives also interview Nikki's brother Damon about his last contact with her.
About 9 p.m., Nikki's on the phone with her brother, who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company. They're playing cards. No names were given. Now we gotta find who that person or persons are.
Nikki's family does have an idea of who it could be.
When the police told me she had been murdered, both Damon and I said, it's gotta be Cooley.
Cooley was Nikki's boyfriend.
Nikki telling her mother that Cooley was a vicious person that attacked her and was abusive to her.
I said, I didn't bring you into this world to be abused. I said, you need to get away from that. But she wasn't gonna leave New York, as far as Cooley was concerned.
Usually the boyfriend or the husband is the first person you look at as being a suspect. And when you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies insofar as domestic violence, that makes them even more of a suspect.
A man named Cooley has quickly become a person of interest in the double homicide of Britney Rojos and Nikki Silas.
He had a previous record for domestic violence. He's the prime person you want to find first. We found out that this person worked at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. When he's brought in, initially, we challenged him with the things we found out. He was forthcoming, saying, yes, we had relationship problems. We were arguing all the time, but he denied ever putting his hands on her. He denied ever threatening her. But yet, he did say that he didn't want her to be around people, socializing with people, and felt that with her being in the video business and meeting celebrities, he might lose her to somebody else that was more successful. You say to yourself, you know, hey, he has an anger issue, but is it enough to say that he would be willing to commit this type of murder?
They need to know where he was between 1 and 3 a.m.
Cooley had an alibi that had to be checked and verified. It was sketchy. It wasn't enough to say he couldn't have made this time frame of when we believe the homicide took place.
Detectives try another tack to link him to the crime.
When we said, well, we want DNA, he didn't hesitate. But it could be, hey, that's my girlfriend, of course we had sex, so you can have my DNA, I didn't do anything wrong.
Despite his shaky alibi and a potential explanation for the presence of his DNA, it's still not enough to physically place him at the scene.
We went back to the neighborhood and we discovered someone who noticed something interesting in the apartment building or in the area. Daniel Ramirez was the assistant super. He would have known who belonged in the building and who didn't. He's very observant.
He happened to be there that particular day, a little later than 1 in the morning.
Ramirez reports that he sees these two African Americans leaving the building. One looks very upset. He's so agitated to the point that he throws up, leaving the building.
The other gentleman was carrying what he believed to be either a duffel bag or a laundry bag with a safe that was protruding out of this bag. Daniel Ramirez helped the sketch be composed of what he saw of these individuals going down the stairs and out the building. Cooley had to stand in lineup, which he consented to. And Mr. Ramirez observed the lineup with Cooley in it, and he did not identify Cooley in the lineup as a person or persons of the two people going out of the building during the time that we believe the homicide occurred. After the interview, the results came in that it wasn't his DNA. That proved to us at that time that he wasn't what caused her death.
With Cooley ruled out, detectives revisit the crime scene evidence. They examine letters addressed to Britney Rojos.
We found out that Britney was in communication with an inmate that was being held at Rikers Island, knowing that he was incarcerated at the time. And that proved that he couldn't have done it. But maybe he says, you know what, I know that they felt threatened or they were having some personal issues in their life that might have been the reason that they were killed. So we had to go interview this person and have a conversation to see if he might have been aware of any reason anybody would have been after attacking Britney or maybe her roommate, Nikki Silas. He said he loved her. He claims he didn't know that she was having any problems with anybody that he might have been aware of. But during the interview, it was mentioned that one of the locations that Britney and Nikki worked was in a peep show called Show World.
It's a bombshell for detectives, and the Times Square location is well known to police.
When the Navy comes in with the big ships, the sailors come in, the first thing they do is they go to Show World, put their money in, they want to see dancers on stage, take their clothes off. And that's where a lot of these celebrity dance artists and stuff would go to pick girls that sit in on a video shoot and perform and dance.
When investigators discovered that these two girls were more than students, that they were working at this well-established club, for them it opened up a whole host of other potential suspects. Establishments like this attract a certain criminal element.
So my initial thought was whatever happened to them came from Show World.
They learn it was here where Britney and Nikki first met and decided to become roommates.
Some people believe it's a lot of seedy females that work there, but 90% of the females that do work there are school kids. You know, going to school, trying to support their education. They got a percentage of what slots money came in, and that's how they made their money. It pays well. On an average night, they can make $400 or $500.
But while Nikki and Britney lived on the straight and narrow, many of the customers did not.
You have people that come in there that have drug abuse. You have people that come in there that are sex crime perpetrators.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met.
The visitors, the men who are there, can see who's making the money. And it's not very difficult to imagine a scenario where the patrons of a strip club will follow home a dancer and attempt to rob them.
When you're dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Detectives question the girls' co-workers.
Britney had a regular person who she used to date from the show world. An admirer, an older person.
He was giving her a lot of attention and cash. The term was sugar daddy.
Britney was known to spend time with him outside the club.
One of the theories was that because he knew where she lived, that maybe he was there on that particular night and something went wrong. Maybe he says, hey, you can't be around nobody else. You're gonna do what I say. I'm giving you money.
If she refused, he got angry, and he killed her.
And if Nikki was a witness, it might be you're forced to make that decision to take her out because she know who you are.
Rape is a very serious offense. There's a high incentive for you to make sure that nobody in that apartment is left to tell the police what you've done.
You want to find this person. You want to know who he is. What was he about?
The discovery that a sugar daddy dated murder victim Britney Rojos has detectives staking out a Times Square nightclub.
He comes there frequently enough that we felt comfortable to pick him up whenever he showed up. You want to talk to him, try to find out where he was during the night of this particular case. What was his interest in her? Was it solely a sex relation, or was it just, hey, you felt real bad, she's struggling, and you have money, and you just wanted to give her money for her to spend time with you? So the first thing you're looking for is any facial marks, scratches, any indication that they look like they've been in a fight. Because it was a severe fight in there. You know, she put up a struggle. He had no injuries, he didn't show signs. He was really upset that she was dead.
When someone's being extremely cooperative with police, it can either be taken in a number of ways. It can be a flag that that person is trying to get their attention away from somebody else. Or it could be that they sincerely want to work with the police to try to get something solved.
You ask him a question, he answered it as best he could. I'm not gonna say it was a love relationship, but he really liked her. He felt real bad and said, if there's anything that I could do to help solve this, I'd be willing to. And the alibi that he gave was substantial enough to prove that he wasn't a part of the crime. He couldn't have made it to that location and did what he had to do and get back. His DNA didn't match Nikki's, and he was ruled out.
It was heartbreaking because these two innocent girls were viciously murdered, and there wasn't much to go on as far as clues or evidence.
Every time we thought we had something, they were ruled out. Every time we thought we had some valuable information, it turned out to be no good. So you're trying to put the time pieces together, and there was no other fingerprints in there that we can come across. So the case is what we call stale. You're back to ground zero.
For Nikki's already grieving family, what the case uncovers only causes more pain.
When they told me that she was working at Show World, I was shocked. I felt awful. I wished she had called me and asked me for some money. But the media made a circus out of it. Every weekend, there would be something on the front page. And they were always negative, as if Nikki, because she was in Show World, that's why she was murdered. That was all hurtful. But that was not what made Nikki Show World. It just wasn't. She was a good soul.
After 2 weeks of waiting, detectives finally received Nikki and Britney's phone records.
We noticed that a phone call was made from the apartment to a number listed in Queens around the time the murders occurred. And we were very curious about what that phone call was about and the substance of it.
And keep in mind, we had the directions that was given to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from Queens. I want to go out and invade people's privacy, find out what they don't want people to know, and get the results, and that's what I do.
So we head off to the address where the phone is located. We knock on the door, the female answers, and we announce who we are and why we were there. We had a phone call being made to that apartment. She said she didn't remember, but she said, well, there was a voice message left on the voicemail from somebody that was looking for my boyfriend, Tommy, who's not here right now. And this person sounded very agitated and excited. And we asked if we could listen to the voice message. And she told us she no longer had the phone or the tape. Gave us a story about having an argument with her boyfriend, and she throwing the phone at him, the phone broke, and it was in the garbage.
Or is the phone being thrown away because you know what the end result was and you was trying to get rid of the evidence?
So we had the emergency service search the dumpster. We found the phone, but with no tape.
This call may be the only link to the killer, and only one person can tell detectives what was said.
She didn't know this person, but her boyfriend would know. Later, we got a phone call from the boyfriend, Tommy. We had listened to the message, and he identified the person on the other end as a friend of his by the name of Antoine Adterbury, and he lived at an address in Queens.
Antoine was calling him to complain that the person he was with was bugging out, attacking these females in this apartment, and he didn't want no parts of it, and he was out of there. So now you got somebody that can say, we're in that apartment on the day of the incident. 2 girls are dead, and the only one that can speak on anything is Antoine Adterbury. But is he a part of it?
Detectives dig into the background of a potential witness to the brutal murders of Nikki and Britney.
Once we had the name Antoine Adterbury, we could do a criminal check. Nothing stuck out to say he was a wanted person or a known felon that got locked up numerous times. We found out that he had gotten a job at one of the premier department stores in Queens, that his mother was an upper-level manager there. So his life was positive. And myself and Detective Hall, now that we got where Antoine lives, we take a ride out to Queens. He wasn't shocked to me, you know, when we came in. He didn't look like, you know, somebody that has something to hide. He treated us like gentlemen.
I'm a good interviewer, and I'm a good judge of character. It's something that you develop over the years by talking to different people. You can usually tell when someone's hiding something.
Detectives ask Antoine about the murders.
He first denied knowing that they were killed. He said he didn't hear it or see it on the news.
Then, they confront him with a phone call.
He was trying to play it down. He just wouldn't give up too much information. It was like pulling teeth with him. You know, he'd give you what you want to hear at times, and that was true.
He didn't come out readily and make the commissions on his own.
As the questioning continues, Detective Hayes spots something interesting.
On the left of the living room floor is a silhouette of a safe. That safe that we see is what Ramirez sees in a duffel bag or a laundry bag of one of them leaving the building. That might be the safe that we're talking about. I cannot say how shocking it was that it would be in visible sight.
In a murder investigation, there's really no such thing as coincidence. It's the result of a lot of legwork, a lot of door knocking, interviewing suspects. It's something that happens because you make your own luck.
We asked him about the safe. He says, it's not mine. That's my roommate's. He brought that stuff here. And we went around and around until he finally admitted that he did make the phone call.
That says that Antoine Adterbury is at that apartment. So we put him in the car to go back to the 2-4 precinct. He started realizing that he's in trouble and that I might as well just tell the truth.
Antoine tells detectives his roommate, Kevin Ladson, met Britney in Queens a few weeks earlier.
He was coming out of getting a haircut, ran into her in front of the barbershop and struck up a conversation. They exchanged phone numbers. Some weeks to a month later, he bumps into her again and said, well, I thought you was gonna call me. She said, look, yeah, we can go out, but I got a roommate now. He said, oh, that's strange. I got a guy living with me too. Maybe we could do a double date. Basically, they set up this day to go out, December 18th.
Britney had given Kevin written directions for the train.
Those were the directions that we found to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from his house in Queens.
Antoine says that he and Kevin got to the girls' apartment around 8 p.m. They spent several hours playing cards. Then, Antoine claims, late in the evening, he left the apartment with Nikki.
And when they came back, they found Britney's body, and Kevin was all agitated.
He tells us that Kevin snatches Nikki, and that's when Antoine starts making the call. And when he makes that call and he leaves that voice message, he says he runs out the apartment, and he made it clear, I left that apartment, I didn't leave with anything, I ran out there with nothing. He don't know exactly what time Kevin came down, but he was already out before Kevin. But the question always is, besides calling your friend, why didn't you call the police?
People put themselves into a crime scene and realize they have to get themselves out with minimal guilt.
So we don't know. Did they both do it?
The only way to verify Antoine's story is to find the other man who was there that night.
We went back to Queens looking for his roommate, Kevin Ladson. We found him on the street heading toward the apartment. And we scooped him up and brought him back to 24th Precinct. We walked him by Antoine to make sure that they both know that they were both there.
Officers will often place someone against the other person. Well, what they'll do is they'll go talk to one person, say, did you know this person mentioned this about you? It may not always be true, but it's a way to try to find out who the true culprits are.
Kevin was upset because he thought Antoine was stalking. He was more upset about that than anything else.
There's a huge amount of contempt on the streets for rats. If you talk to the police, or you get called out as being a rat, even if you're not one, your life can be in danger.
Detectives need to break Kevin's silence and discover who really killed Nikki and Britney.
He didn't show any signs of remorse. He didn't show any signs like he didn't care. He just was one of those like, all right, if y'all ain't got no evidence, I'm out of here. He was cold.
We was telling him, you know, you're gonna go down. This is your opportunity to come clean because your buddies are giving it all up and he's blaming you. He never broke them. Kept denying. Where in Adterbury was very open, remorseful. Kevin was just the opposite, which made me believe Antoine more than I did Kevin.
Investigators have one more card to play in Daniel Ramirez. The witness, who can possibly place both of them at the scene.
It was a positive hit on both of them. Daniel Ramirez says that both Kevin Ladson and Antoine Adterbury were the two people he saw leaving the building. Adterbury with nothing in his hands. and throwing up, looking distressed. And Kevin with the duffel bag with the safe, you could say, wow, that's what we were waiting for. It gave probable cause that we know that both of them were involved at the time of the homicide.
This confirms Kevin was outside the building, but it's still not enough to prove which of them did it. They now need something that puts him inside the girl's home.
Antoine told us that Kevin Ladson took a lot of music CDs that the girls had in the apartment, jewelry, and one of the biggest things was the coat that Kevin gave this girl, saying he bought it for her for Christmas. Well, once we knew the coat came from the girlfriend, we had her statement saying that she received this coat from him. He was presented with that, but he couldn't deny it because he knows he gave it to her. You would have thought Kevin would have rolled over and said, wait, I didn't do this by myself. I did Nikki, but he did Britney. And that never surfaced.
The only thing I could surmise is that he didn't want to snitch on his friend. We told him, well, we got DNA there, so you might as well tell us the truth.
Once police have you in their sights, if you, as a suspect, think you're getting away with murder, you're sadly mistaken.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall close in on key evidence needed to deliver justice for Nikki and Britney.
When they got the DNA results back, it's what I suspected. DA was a match with Kevin Ladson.
He knew then, I think, that he was going to see freedom, that it was done.
Detectives arrest and charge Kevin Ladson with double homicide, as well as criminal possession of stolen property.
Antoine pled guilty to burglary. If he had picked up the phone and called the police, I think the DA would have looked at him in a different light.
They now know the details behind the last 24 hours of the young women's lives and how a casual date brought them into the orbit of a heartless killer.
Antoine leaves Queens with Kevin. They get on the train. They decide they're going to the movies and maybe go somewhere to eat. That was the initial plan. But as they get to the station of 94th Street where the girls live, and they come out, it's pouring down rain. So when they get to the apartment, they said, well, you know what? Let's just wait the rain to go past and then we'll go out. So in the meantime, they're socializing, gathering, and it just never stopped. It just kept raining, kept raining. Nikki's on the phone with her brother who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company, they're playing cards. They decide, look, instead of y'all going back in this rain because y'all came through the subway and it's still raining, y'all can stay here tonight. They decide Britney and Nikki gonna sleep in one room, and Antoine and Kevin will be in another room. It started unraveling when they decided to sleep in separate rooms. So in Kevin's mind, what? We sleep in separate rooms. I don't want to sleep with him, I want to sleep with you, being Britney. Nikki decides that she's gonna walk her dog, and Antoine Adterbury goes out with her. And Nikki purchased something from a store. While Nikki and Antoine are outside walking the dog, it's apparent that Kevin Ladson attacks Britney in the bathroom. And a struggle ensued, which caused the sink in the bathroom to dismount off the wall, and her being found with a cord in the tub wrapped around her throat.
Nikki and Antoine come back to the apartment, and they find Britney dead in the bathtub. And Kevin, very agitated, grabs Nikki, pulls her into the bedroom, rapes her, then strangles her.
Antoine decides to pick up the phone and call a friend of his out in Queens and tell him that Kevin is bugging out, he's attacking these girls, and I don't want to be a part of it, and I'm out of here.
They leave the apartment after taking the safe, some jewelry and some clothing, and they're seen by the super helper, Daniel Ramirez, downstairs, leaving the building. Kevin Ladson was there for sex. I think he killed Britney because he made sexual advances toward her and she refused. And it angered him, and he strangled her.
In March 1995, Kevin Ladson is convicted and given 40 years to life.
Ladson, there was something psychologically wrong with him. If it hadn't been this, it'd have been something else.
Antoine Adterbury is sentenced to 7 to 21 years for burglary. But in a twist of fate, it becomes a life sentence.
Antoine ended up dying in prison in 2002. Antoine, I just think it was a person caught wrong place, wrong time.
In an attempt at closure, 20 years later, Karen Silas asks to meet with Kevin Ladson.
I wasn't a bit nervous going in. It was like, I'm supposed to do this. I started talking first and, told him that I didn't hate him, but I hated what he did to Nikki, what he did to us, how he changed so many lives, and how it affected so many lives. He said he made a big, stupid mistake. He wished he had never done it. He apologized many times for what he did to us. I truly believed he was remorseful. There was nothing cocky or put on about him. He was real. I came out of that prison like someone had taken a weight off my shoulder.
In this particular case, after it was all over with, I thought to myself, I said, how sad that they had to come to this fate.
Nikki, she'll be young forever. I think about her and think, would she be married? I think about her kids. If she had kids, I miss that that's not going to be. But I still have a lot of blessings. That's what counts. It's not what's missing, it's what you have.
I can't imagine who has the capacity to be this evil, to be this inhumane.
A brutal killing.
It was something I'd never seen in 36 years. The dismemberment was almost done surgically.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Right away, it gets you thinking along the lines of a serial murderer.
If you looked at his eyes, you could tell that he was a psychopath.
Anybody that she had contact with that night could have killed her.
The truth will be revealed.
This was truly a whodunit.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Manchester, New Hampshire, a blue-collar former mill town threaded with waterways.
The Scattersquag River flows into the Merrimack River. The two do connect in almost the center of Manchester. There's homes along the river. There's an old railroad trestle that kids would use to jump off of and jump into the water in the summertime.
But one summer's day, something disturbing emerges from the depths.
Several swimmers were out there, and one in particular swam up to what he thought was a bag.
It was so out of place that this person decided to look at it.
He looked inside and thought what he saw was a body of a small child or an infant.
These people were just horrified.
Detective Lieutenant Mark Putney and Detective James Susi are immediately called to the scene.
All your adrenaline and everything just kicks in, and I flew over to the west side, to the Piscataqua River, expecting to find a baby inside of a bag. When I opened the bag, the first thing I saw was a torso of a woman.
Headless, armless, and no legs, face down at the time.
It was obvious to us that she had been dismembered. It was something I'd never seen in 36 years, and I've investigated probably over 50 homicides, so it was very disturbing.
Who could do something like this to another human being?
Things start running through your mind as to, what happened and who is this person.
Without the head, it becomes much more difficult to identify somebody because you don't have any dental records, you don't have any basis of comparison.
We knew we need to start conducting a search. The water, the trestle, the walkways, the marsh, the entire area, in hopes to find the remaining body parts.
You're obligated to search as much as you can for body parts. I mean, that brings closure to the family on one side, but also may provide evidence.
When we didn't find the rest of the body, we assumed that it happened at some other location and the body was dumped there. So now our crime scene really went citywide. We didn't have any idea where this happened.
An examination of the torso yields a key detail.
She had a tattoo on her right shoulder that had the first name of Mary.
They immediately cross-reference the name with the town's recently disappeared and get a hit.
Mary Stson was reported missing that morning by her oldest daughter, Tamara.
And they came and picked us up, and we went down to the station. It was weird because I was sitting in the car and I seen a helicopter up in the sky and people heading over towards the water where we live. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
There's no delicate way to tell someone that their mother was dismembered. You have to just explain it. And yeah, it's something that you don't forget.
To find out it was my mother's torso. It's just disgusting. It made me sick. That's when my life changed,
It's a horrific crime. And to know that she had 5 children, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's something that, will stay with me the rest of my life.
Mary Stson was described as a wonderful mom, somebody who was a good provider.
My mother was working at a cable company. She would work 40, 50 hours a week. She was tall, long legs, just beautiful. inside and out.
Her oldest daughter, Tamara, gave information that her mother had gone out on the night of the 18th, and that since that night, her mother never returned home. She said that was very unusual. She was last seen at 5:45 on the 18th and discovered on the 20th.
Creating a timeline is critical to any police investigation. Without a timeline, it's often difficult, if not impossible, for police to create a suspect list, and it makes it almost impossible for murder to be solved.
From the moment she was killed into the moment she was disposed of was probably over a 24-hour period. We determined that the death probably occurred late on the 18th, early on the 19th.
Narrowing it down further will prove a challenge.
When finding a body in water, it can prove difficult in determining cause of death and time of death. Being submerged in water may accelerate the internal changes in the body and cause decomposition at an advanced rate than it would outside the water. You also may have fish plucking out the hair and taking pieces of skin off the body. You also may have artifact from motorboats. The propeller can make deep cuts in the body to make it look like there was stabbing or cutting before they died.
But the injuries to Mary's torso point to something far more deliberate.
The medical examiner of New Hampshire did an autopsy, and he was able to determine that she died of multiple stab wounds, I think 12 to be specific, to her chest cavity. That tells me that somebody was very angry, extremely upset, and determined to kill this person, that it wasn't something that was an accident or a random act.
It clearly seemed like it was a personal attack. Something, I think we would characterize as, vicious, evil.
The frenzy of that attack contrasts with what the killer does next.
The dismemberment was almost done surgically. The cuts were very clean, right through the flesh and right through the bone. It didn't look like it was done by, to me, an amateur.
What that says about the mindset of the person is that they have this willingness not only to kill, but to get up close and personal and chop somebody into little bits.
You're already looking for a certain type of person. It takes a lot of strength, even if you know what you're doing. So the person you look for is likely male. That could be someone in the medical profession. That could also be someone who is a butcher.
We were looking for someone who had the capacity and the knowledge to dispose of a body, to throw off investigators, to both the victim and the suspect. And also someone who was so completely evil and depraved that could do something like this to another human being. It gets you thinking along the lines of a serial murderer.
One of the first things we did in this case was reach out to other police departments to see if they had any similar crimes in other jurisdictions.
So we were looking for a similar pattern.
There were no other cases that matched this case.
Detectives shift the focus to Mary's relationships to locate anyone she had contact with prior to her murder.
Most murders are committed between people who know each other in one capacity or another, and I call them crimes of passion.
We really needed to uncover every corner and lift up every stone and specifically get into the details of her life and what she was about and who she socialized with.
They turn to Mary's 22-year-old daughter, Tamra.
My mother talked to my father, but he lived all the way in Louisiana.
Her ex-husband wasn't a suspect. It was a very friendly relationship.
But the family can point them to someone who connects directly to Mary's timeline.
On the 18th, in the afternoon, she was supposed to go out with a guy named Chris.
And he never showed, and she was ready to, go out and have a good time. My mother wasn't the type to wait around. She's like, it's my Sunday. Hey, I'm leaving. She left the house at 5:45 in a taxi cab.
Mary's date then shows up less than an hour after she leaves the house.
It was a very quick conversation. Is your mother here? Is Mary here? And she said no, she had left. And the person said okay and left.
This unknown person is not somebody that she frequents with or socializes with. It was somebody that was new.
Our focus at this point was trying to identify the date. We don't know what that relationship was like. We don't know what happened after they left, if they did meet up. We don't know if they went to his apartment or a hotel or anywhere. Potentially, there could have been some type of argument where it could turn violent.
Detectives looking for Mary Stetson's murderer have their first suspect, a man they know only as Chris.
The family provided us the description of the person that showed up at her home. He was a white male. He had blue eyes and blonde spiked hair, slender build. We brought in a forensic artist and sat down with her. She was able to provide us a sketch of who this person was.
So we take the composite sketch, and we wanted to get this information out so that we could start generating tips.
When you're dealing with homicide, the media is your friend. As much as they want information from you to make the 6 o'clock news, you need them to also get messages out to your witnesses, maybe to your suspect.
But I just didn't like the fact that she was all over the place. Didn't sit well with me at all.
The composite sketch is widely distributed, but Mary's date does not come forward.
We had no one that jumped out at us and said that, you need to take a real hard look at this person. It was very disappointing because here's somebody that was knocking at Mary's door 2 days before she's discovered, and for the person not to come forward immediately was very concerning to us. This person seemed as if it just dropped off the face of the earth.
Police move on to examine the next stage in Mary's timeline.
Mary was picked up by a local cab from her Kimball Street address and was taken downtown to a local bar.
We conducted an in-depth interview with that driver who confirmed that he had dropped her off, and he in fact saw her leave the cab and walk towards the bar. Mary arrived at the bar at approximately 6 p.m. in the evening.
It's a popular joint on Lake Avenue.
That was my mother's spot. She loved it there.
We had gone in there with her picture. We showed it around to the different patrons that were there, to the bartender. We learned that Mary had some drinks. We learned that somebody saw her with someone.
You now have a connection to a person and your victim. And certainly the theory is that, during that interaction, something went wrong for whatever reason, and then it becomes violent, which certainly happens in relationships.
Detectives compare the man's description with the one they have for Chris.
Chris had short, blonde, spiked hair, blue eyes. This individual that was seen with Mary had brownish hair, was a little older, so that it didn't match. So now we're trying to establish who this person is that was with Mary, and we're also still trying to find out who Chris was.
It certainly is frustrating when the information that you're looking for that you think is taking you in one direction, and then suddenly you're getting different information that's making you hang a left and head in another direction.
They search for any detail that could help them identify Mary's killer.
We started to speak with people inside the bar, and they brought up this one point during the evening. There was a male party who was different than Chris, had apparently purchased this teddy bear from another individual.
And the person that was with Mary, he was trying to warm up to her and bought the teddy bear for $5 and gave it to Mary.
One of the things that stood out was this particular teddy bear only had one eye on it. Several people had indicated that they thought it was unusual. It was just another a piece of the puzzle that we were trying to put together.
The canvas also helps detectives hone in on the time of the murder.
Mary was seen leaving the bar sometime around 11 p.m. that night.
At that point, Mary's trail runs cold. Aiming to generate new leads, they look further back in her timeline.
The family told us earlier that day that she had been to this market, which was in the neighborhood. And there was the store manager, Eddie, who worked inside this place.
I didn't care for Eddie. I thought he was very sketchy, weird. You know, how you get vibes from certain people, and he was one of them.
Allegedly, this was no shopping trip.
One of her daughters had indicated that she had an issue with Eddie. Her daughter would work there part-time and stock some shelves, and that he had made an inappropriate comment to her, and that he may have inappropriately touched her.
My mother found out about it and was really, really livid.
It's a very volatile situation when someone has a revelation that their daughter has been possibly molested.
I wondered if he had something to do with her disappearance.
Did Mary go back to the store, confront Eddie, and Eddie became so upset, killed Mary?
An alleged confrontation between Mary Stson and a store manager named Eddie sparks the interest of detectives.
Based on what Mary's daughter told us, we were concerned. Eddie could possibly be a suspect here. The detectives went there and they spoke to him. They tried to get an alibi from him, what he did that night, get a timeline.
He did say that Mary had been there on the 18th, and she did confront him about these allegations, and they had a discussion. He described it as a bit heated. He denied having anything take place. Everything was on the up and up, and eventually Mary left the store, according to him. Eddie had closed the store at 11 o'clock.
He said he left and gave another employee a ride home, and he went home.
To verify Eddie's claim, they questioned the man he says was in his vehicle that night.
Billy Johnson was another employee in the store. He was a bit of a transient, too. I believe he may have even stayed from time to time in the basement of that place.
Rather than providing clarity, Billy's statement confuses the picture even further.
He said when Mary had stopped in and he had asked her about what she was doing later, and she may have been a little flirtatious, she had suggested that she may stop back between 10 and 11.
We had known that Mary was kind of a social butterfly, so it wasn't really all that unusual for her to agree to go out on a date. But the contradiction that we faced was the fact that she went to the store to confront Eddie about these allegations of sexual assault against her daughter. And while she's there, during some time frame, she has interaction with Billy, and she agrees that she's gonna have some kind of date with him later on in the evening. It just, it didn't add up, it didn't make much sense.
As they probe deeper, allegations surface that may explain the contradiction.
People in the neighborhood said that Billy was a daily alcohol consumer, and he'd have these spans of time that he couldn't remember or just didn't make sense. When you're talking to somebody like that, you don't know what they remember and what they don't remember.
Then, they discover something even more disturbing.
We found that Billy worked in a butcher shop and was familiar with the process. When you hear about what took place and you see the manner in which the death occurred, you put two and two together and you say to yourself, this guy certainly has the potential to be a good suspect.
With conflicting accounts of Mary's actions, police want to see exactly what happened in the store.
There was CCTV video, and the camera wasn't working that night.
That clearly did send up a flag that, was it just coincidental? Was it on purpose? Did Eddie create a malfunction with these cameras to hide something from the police? Certainly there was a potential for a motive, for, something bad happening. Either Eddie or Billy or both having the potential or even the capacity to do this crime and having the MO for our murderer. If we had more concrete evidence from this closed-circuit TV, if we've seen Mary arrive, that could really turn into something else. Unfortunately, we didn't have that evidence. So we have to work hard to corroborate their stories and see if they have any alibis that fit. We couldn't connect Mary to Eddie because his alibi was locked up by the fact that he closed the store and he was seen by his family in another location on the same time frame that Mary had been seen in the downtown area.
Billy was living with somebody at the time when we spoke to that person, and we were able to alibi him that he did come home and never went back out. That whole scenario of the camera not working, I think, was legitimate.
To be certain, detectives perform a search for physical evidence.
Eddie allowed the detectives the opportunity to search the store. Obviously, whoever committed this murder, there would be a crime scene. They went downstairs, they searched the cellar, they looked all over, and they couldn't find any evidence that suggested that Mary had been killed there.
As they rule out the market, Mary's date appears from nowhere.
Chris just walked into the police department and said something to the effect of, "I think you guys are looking for me." And we interviewed him. That composite sketch was 100% accurate. You could put them up together, it was the same person. What was concerning to me was the fact that after this homicide was reported, it was all over the media. And the fact that that person didn't come forward, to us, that was very important.
We're wary when he walks in the station right away that he is somehow connected to this, that he has had ample time to dispose of critical evidence, that he's had time to think about the whole process, to think about a story, to think about an alibi. You go into this hoping you could poke holes in his story.
He couldn't really provide a real reason for not coming forward. He also didn't go to work the next day. I remember looking into that and saying, well, this is odd. He didn't come forward for a couple of weeks, so we pressed him hard.
Chris eventually told us that he didn't make the appointment when he was supposed to. He was late. By the time he got to her house, she had left.
Chris tells police he then joined friends at another bar across the street from where Mary was dropped off.
Both bars were similar, maybe 50 yards from one another.
We confirmed his alibi by speaking with the friends that he was with that night who corroborated that information. And in fact, he was with them, so he couldn't possibly have been where she was.
He also provided us an alibi as to where he spent the night that night, and we were able to find the person that he spent the night with. He was cleared as a suspect.
Knowing that he was a focus, a critical focus of this investigation, it is discouraging when you think you're angling for the right piece of the pie, and then suddenly, you get that ripped out from underneath you, and you realize, you have to regroup and go in a different direction. I mean, people were on edge. They talked about it in the schools and on the news, and it didn't matter if we were exhausted. It didn't matter if we had other things on our plate. But it became increasingly frustrating. The more information that we got, the more of kind of a question we had in the back of our heads as to who this suspect was. Were we ever going to get to the right person? Were we going to locate that person in time to prevent maybe another tragedy?
Chris then turns from suspect to critical witness.
Chris had seen Mary walking down Lake Avenue with another gentleman. Long, dark hair, kind of a chiseled complexion, in his 40s. And he remembers because Mary was wearing the hat that he recognized, the dark, wide-brimmed hat.
This matches the description of the man seen with Mary earlier that evening. More determined than ever, detectives renew their efforts with the media.
You never get tired of tips, especially on a whodunit. And this was truly a whodunit.
They get a break. A caller claims Mary was hanging out with a guy known only as Razor.
He told us that Razor would use a knife. And he was very skilled with it.
Police have a new person of interest. A man who goes by the name Razor.
Kind of ironic that he got the nickname of Razor and that he came in on a tip line when we're looking for somebody that had been involved in a dismemberment.
They bring in the man who phoned in the tip. His name is Josh.
Josh had told us that there was a party that both he and Razor were at. Both were competing for, Mary's affection, and at some point, she was obviously leaning towards Josh, more so than she was leaning towards Razor, if at all. Razor was apparently so upset that he located him that next day and assaulted and beat him up.
Detectives need to determine if Razor is the same dark-haired man last seen with Mary the night she died.
He was upset and had a connection to Mary. Mary kind of had an attraction to his friend instead of him. Maybe he has a criminal past. Those things kind of add up.
They head to Razor's last known location.
When he was in Concord, he was living in this tent on the river. I personally actually went to Concord and found his tent. We searched his campsite and surrounding areas, and we didn't find anything. No knives. No knives that were capable of causing this homicide.
This manner of disposing of a body, it seemed like it was a process, a very involved process, and that didn't fit his profile. He was a drifter, a transient who lived in a tent, doesn't have a vehicle, doesn't have the equipment needed. He doesn't have the means in order to commit this type of crime. In the end, he didn't fit the description of the person back in the bar.
With Razor ruled out, concern grows the case may go cold.
That was extremely frustrating because each time we developed information on another person, we were excited, we were getting there, we identified somebody, could this be it? And then suddenly we would speak to these individuals and we realized right away this is not the person we're looking for.
Months are going by and we couldn't lay her to rest.
It's gut-wrenching. You know, when you're trying to solve this case, there's pressure from the family. They want answers, you know, so you have an obligation to try to solve it as quick as you can and give them answers. We used every avenue that we could to hopefully try to solve it.
Then, they uncover a curious new lead. A second missing persons report.
We received a call late at night from a woman who identified herself as Donna Plick.
She hadn't seen her ex-husband, Vaklav Plick. Even though they were divorced, they still had a relationship where they would talk daily. Donna was somewhat nervous, but she was also concerned. She didn't know if something had happened to him.
Vaklav Plick was last seen in the early hours of July 22nd, 2 days after police found Mary Stson.
When someone disappeared in and around the time of the murder or shortly thereafter, that is of great interest to find out where they went.
But what detectives learn next turns Vaklav from victim into potential suspect.
Vaklav was employed at a place nearby. It was described as a deboning factory.
He would debone chickens. He would cut up lamb legs and beef. And he would use a knife. And he was very skilled with it.
He was certainly capable of making the type of cuts that we had seen on the torso when we first discovered the body. Very clean, very precise cuts.
When Donna was interviewed, she indicated that he had a violent past. He had threatened that he could kill her and cut her up, and no one would ever know. Donna knew that he would frequent bars that were on Lake Ave, and that he would go fishing where the body was found.
Donna gives police a photo of her ex-husband.
One of our detectives that had originally gone out to these two drinking establishments and was asking around saw his photograph, and he was like, "You gotta be kidding me."
He had been inside the bar showing the picture of Mary Stson around to see if anybody else had known Mary. And in fact, he had gone over to a table of males that were sitting together and had showed the picture. They didn't speak very good English, but they could communicate that they had never seen that woman before. The third male that was sitting there happened to be Vaklav Plick.
With Plick now the prime suspect, detectives return to the bar where Mary was last seen.
We completed a photo array, which included Vaklav. You know, our hope is to have somebody identify him in the bar.
We showed it around to the different patrons that were there, to the bartender, and they identified Vaklav Plick.
They need to determine what happened in the hours after Mary and Plick left the bar.
Well, we started canvassing the neighborhood where Donna showed us this apartment. And there was a neighbor that we spoke to that knew Vaklav.
She had seen Vaklav arrive at the apartment with a female who was similar in description to Mary on the night she disappeared. So when we initially came to the apartment, two of us entered through the common hallway in the front. One of the first things we saw was what appeared to be dark stains on the wall, leaving the front of the apartment outside the common hallway and heading towards the exterior door. The stains that we tested did test positive for the presence of human blood.
That gave us probable cause to get a search warrant. It was very interesting what we found in that apartment. When you first go in and just look, you wouldn't think that anything had happened there. Everything appeared normal.
And then as we looked in further, we determined that there was evidence that not only pointed to this Vaklav Plick as our guy, our suspect, but connected him right away to our victim.
On the bed was a rimmed hat. That's Mary's hat.
Not only that, there were several teddy bears inside that apartment. One in particular that was missing an eye.
All crime scenes are strange, but to see the hat sitting on a bed that was perfectly made, and to see this teddy bear without an eye was just, you know, here's the case.
Kind of made the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Detectives have proof that Mary Stson was inside Vaklav Plick's apartment the night she disappeared. Now they're looking for evidence of murder.
In his bedroom, the carpet was cut out.
I mean, that's consistent with something happening, something staining the carpet, and then the carpet having to be removed right away.
When someone's stabbing somebody, the blood is casting off.
And clearly, people who clean up crime scenes forget the fact that there's other manners in which to collect evidence or visually see evidence.
You turn out all the lights, and you spray this chemical luminol, and it luminesces blood with like a black light, and that area lit up like a Christmas tree. There was blood on the bedspread. There was blood on the heater leading to the hallway. You could see there was an enormous amount of blood that was there. There was blood in the bathtub. At the last phase, it kind of tells you a story. This is where he cut her up in the bathroom. You understand the human cost of what that means, but as an investigator, it's another little piece of evidence, because at the end of the day, you're trying to convict this person and put him away for the rest of his life.
After a nationwide manhunt, they ambush Vaklav Plick outside a gas station in Austin, Texas.
We didn't know if he was armed. We knew certainly what he was capable of. So we waited outside, and I pretended I was pumping gas, and as he walked out, we grabbed him and arrested him.
I was so happy and relieved because this man was caught, and he wouldn't be able to do it again to some other woman.
As they grill Plick for a confession, they now have a complete timeline of what happened the night Mary died.
Mary left her apartment about 5:45. She traveled in a cab to a local bar. There, she met with Vaklav. They had some drinks at this bar, and he purchased a teddy bear for her. They then left that bar and headed back towards Vaklav's apartment on Orange Street. And that he tried maybe having sex with her, and she didn't want to. And an argument ensued, and he ended up violently stabbing her to death. In a panic, he didn't know what to do, so he dismembered her so he could get her out of the apartment. He used a miter saw that was in his closet, and he put the torso in a large duffel bag, and he threw her in the area that he fished at the trestle. He then took the other body parts and drove out to the total opposite side of the city and discarded them in the woods.
I had an opportunity to be very close to this person, this level of evil that I don't think I've ever been as close to in the past.
With the information that he provided about what he had done with the torso and the body parts, Manchester police conducted another search. And we were able to find her head on one side of the street and some of her extremities on the other. I think it was very important to the family that we recovered her head especially. They were able to give her a proper burial, and I think that was very, very important.
She raised us, and he took that away. He just completely destroyed a family.
On November 14th, 2000, Vaklav Plick is convicted of Mary Stetson's murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
I just remember when the verdict came back guilty, how emotional it was, even for me. And I turned, and Tamara was there, and we embraced each other and cried.
It was a relief. I gave Mark a big hug because they worked hard. And it was finally ended. And I was, I was kind of happy. Justice was served.
You just don't wake up one morning and commit a crime of this nature. Not this demented and sick and evil.
A brutal killing.
An innocent young girl should not have to worry about being murdered in her own apartment.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
There was this kind of bad blood between them.
He was a registered sex offender. He paints himself as a great guy, but he's lying, he's lying, he's lying.
The truth will be revealed.
He is a walking time bomb. He is just incredibly dangerous.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. In the early morning hours in Arlington, Texas, emergency services respond to a frantic 911 call.
A citizen living in the apartment complex heard glass break. They assumed that was a burglary, so the Arlington police were called.
When our officers showed up, they saw the smoke and the flames in the apartment.
The fire department arrives. They do what they're supposed to do, and that is put out the fire.
Once the flames are extinguished, the true horror of the scene is revealed.
The apartment was destroyed. It was a mess. I went into the bedroom. There was a young woman laying on her back on the bed. And the very first thing I saw was a circular, round puncture in the middle of her chest. It was clear to me that there's a stab wound.
She was burned enough to not be recognizable, but not to the point that it concealed the injuries that we found. She was lying on her back on a bed, and that part of her in contact with the bed was relatively spared from the heat. Right away, we're going to treat it like it's foul play.
The Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office had the responsibility for positive identification, and they were able to do that with dental records.
And that's what led to the discovery that it was Missy Grubb. She was 19 years old, 2.5 weeks from her 20th birthday.
Arlington police detectives Tommy Lenore and John Stanton are tasked with finding her killer.
In order to catch the assailant, you want to know about your victim. So I learned a lot about Missy right off the bat. As a father myself, she is the daughter every father would want. She was a wonderful, wonderful kid. She was a freshman at the University of Texas at Arlington. She was an honor student from a nearby high school. She was also in the band. She had very strong religious beliefs. A young lady with incredible integrity.
We found out she was also known to still be a virgin, which she apparently was not ashamed to tell people. The people who she worked with and associated with, they all were told that she had made that decision, that she was going to wait till after she was married.
Someone has robbed Missy of that future.
There was some effects to her body from the smoke, but you could still see that she had been beaten. Her legs were sprawled, hanging off the edge of the bed. She was wearing a shirt or a bra, but it was pulled up to her neck. It was burnt. Her panties were around her right ankle, and there was a pair of pants also on the floor. You could also see what appeared to be ligature marks.
To solve the murder, detectives will need to trace the last day of Missy Grubb's young life.
Missy worked 2 different restaurant jobs, was working her way through college. We learned that within 24 hours or so of Missy's death, she worked.
She would stay and kind of decompress from her night's work, and then they would all call it a night and she went home. The last anyone knew from the workplace was that she had gone home alone sometime after 11 o'clock at night.
Detectives work to establish time of death.
In these type of cases, what you really want to find out is, was she killed before the fire or was she killed after the fire?
If a person is dead from a fire, they will have almost certainly inhaled some soot and smoke, and we'll see that to the naked eye. And so if we analyze the blood, we will see that there's an elevated saturation of carbon monoxide in their red blood cells. In Missy Grubb's case, there was no soot to be found, and when we ran the laboratory studies, there was no carbon monoxide detected. She actually died of a stab wound to the chest that perforated her heart. She was dead when the fire got to her, and she had not begun to decompose. It could have been minutes or hours.
So, in order to establish the time of the fire, we rely on the arson investigators. I rely on their expertise and their forensics.
Arson experts determined the fire started moments before the 911 call at 3:30 a.m. With Missy arriving home sometime after 11, this gives investigators a 4 to 5 hour window for the attack.
When someone attaches arson to their crime, there's 2 reasons to set that fire, and usually they go hand in hand. One reason is to destroy evidence. Another reason is to do what we call staging, and that is to try to disguise the death as something other than what the assailant actually did.
There was information coming in from the arson investigators that the source of the fire was the front door. and then there was a trail of accelerant that led back to the bedroom where Missy was found.
If a fire is set correctly, it can have devastating consequences for an investigation as far as forensic evidence. Investigating a death in which fire has been introduced to the crime scene makes that investigation 10 times harder.
Fortunately, there was less than complete destruction there at the apartment.
If fire doesn't have oxygen, it'll go out. And what happened was the assailant shut the bedroom door, left the apartment, and the absence of oxygen in the bedroom put the fire out. You can't help but destroy things when you set it on fire, but he didn't destroy what he intended to destroy.
We were able to collect a sexual assault kit that was usable.
A key piece of evidence from this crime scene was DNA, collected during the autopsy from the vaginal swabs. But in 1994, it usually took a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks to get your results back.
DNA is a very helpful tool in investigating a death, but it's only helpful if you have something to compare it to. When you have a suspect and their DNA, you can compare the DNA that you've collected from the body.
The very nature of this crime, the arson, the sexual assault, the brutality of it, and the violence really led us to worry that we have a serial killer or a serial rapist running around.
We've got someone out among us who is a violent offender. You've got a bad individual out there, without a doubt.
But what we find is people who stage crime scenes, especially with arson, they were always either associated or related to the victim.
There did not appear to be any forced entry that gave us some direction as to maybe this is an associate of Missy's.
The careful work of forensics uncovers a key clue.
We actually found some letters in her apartment. The letters were of a romantic nature. From reading it, you could tell this was a male.
They were seemingly like boyfriend-girlfriend type letters.
You could also see in the body of these letters that she was battling with her abstinence. You could see Missy was confused. You know, she wanted the romance, and she didn't know if this individual was going to settle for the limitations. She went a little too far with him, or was going to go a little too far with him, and she was feeling bad about that. The letters also expressed anger and maybe a little animosity towards Missy. Well, they were breaking up. We identified the person who was corresponding back and forth with Missy on these letters, and his name was Ivan.
Detectives learned that Ivan and Missy were co-workers at the restaurant.
This guy was a very primary person for us right away.
We did a background check on Ivan. We found that Ivan was a registered sex offender. Ivan was convicted for having a sexual relationship with a minor. The fact that Ivan did have a criminal background, the fact that there was a little bit of a volatile nature to their relationship, it's certainly a red flag.
Some people have a very hard time letting go of someone they're involved with, and they would rather see that person dead than with somebody else.
This makes him a really good suspect because that horrible sexual assault and brutal crime could simply have been triggered in an explosion from him.
Arlington detectives have identified their first suspect in the hunt for Missy Grubb's killer, her boyfriend, Ivan.
We had very limited information, just the letters and so forth. But because of the state of their relationship, he's certainly going to be a primary focus at that time.
The detectives bring Ivan to the station.
Ivan's demeanor was very polite. He was very open, somewhat preppy, soft-spoken. Was certainly not a gangster or a tough guy. He seemed just somewhat, actually, to the point where he was rather meek. You could tell Ivan had feelings towards Missy, but he was also upset.
Despite their strained relationship, Ivan swears he had nothing to do with Missy's death.
Ivan said he respected Missy. He was leaning more to terminating the relationship as opposed to pursuing it. He wasn't aggravated. It was basically fading away on his part. Missy did not want it to go away. He did.
Ivan tells Lenore he was home alone on the night of her death.
Ivan did not have an alibi for his whereabouts during the time frame that Missy was killed.
You've got his background as a person who's been convicted of sexual assault, and you've got no alibi, and you've got a dead body. That makes him a very strong suspect.
In this particular case, we had forensic evidence.
Ivan did not have any problem with providing blood, hair, all of those samples necessary to do comparisons with the samples that were taken at the autopsy.
But I knew there was not going to be a forensic exclusion of any person of interest prior to 6, 8, possibly even 10 weeks. But during the interview with Ivan, he was very suspicious of an individual who he believed was responsible for Missy's death. That individual was Jeff Smith. He had worked with Missy at the restaurant. Ivan had told us Jeff Smith saw himself as a ladies' man, and Jeff Smith was pursuing Missy and did so in probably not the most respectful manner. She did not respond to his advances, and that just fueled his animosity towards her.
Jeffrey was someone who sort of had a grudge against Missy because of something that occurred at the restaurant.
He's fired from where they work together, and he immediately assumes that Missy is responsible for getting him fired.
If you were to go back in history, I think that love and lust and betrayal would probably be the #1 reason why people end up dead.
Ivan says Jeff Smith's anger soon took a disturbing turn.
Smith started issuing threats to actually harm Missy.
Many death threats are emotion-based over domestic issues, financial issues. Is it important in an investigation because it tells you the mindset of the individual the day they said it? Yes, it's important, it's evidence, and it should be treated as such.
We were trying to find Jeffrey Smith, and he seemed to never be where we thought he was going to be. When we would show up to try to interview this guy, he was always somewhere else. The more time goes by that he doesn't make himself available, it takes it to a more suspicious level.
I was actually able to locate his girlfriend. They were living together in an apartment in Arlington, and she agreed to come to the station and speak with me. The girlfriend informed us that Jeff Smith was emotionally unstable. He was also very volatile. He had a hair-trigger temper. She was very cautious of him, actually somewhat fearful of him.
Normal, non-controlling men don't typically commit murders. It's a certain type of person who gets jealous, gets angry. And so if friends and family members describe a man as being controlling, that has some significance if you're a police officer or a lawyer trying to figure out whether the person did it.
Jeff Smith's girlfriend implied that she believed that Jeff Smith could have been responsible as well for the murder of Missy Grubb. Now we have somebody that has motive. We have a very recent situation that could have easily exploded into violence and a sexual assault. That's everything this guy could have done.
Detectives press the girlfriend for details on Smith's timeline.
Jeff Smith was supposed to have been with her on the night of Missy's death, and he was not. And she couldn't find him. And then the following morning, she found a note on her windshield from Jeff Smith, who was apologizing because he didn't come home, claiming that he was with some friends. So the fact that Jeff Smith should have been at the apartment and he wasn't, and that was the night that Missy was killed, and you add that into this volatile relationship and the threats towards Missy, becomes a primary suspect at that point.
Jeff Smith's girlfriend has given police enough to make him the prime suspect in Missy Grubaugh's murder.
The additional information that Jeff Smith was supposed to have been with her on the night of Missy's death, and he was not, added fuel to that suspicion. I started thinking that we may be pretty close.
After days of chasing him, his girlfriend helps detectives track him down.
I think the best way to describe him is a con man wannabe. He was cocky, he thought he was cool, he thought he was a smooth talker, thinking that he's gonna sit in there with me and just blow smoke all day long and I'm gonna believe it. Jeff Smith downplayed the alleged threats and so forth towards Missy. Matter of fact, he turned it around and said that she was the one pursuing him. She was the one who had the hots for him, which I knew was an absolute lie. Jeff Smith denied any allegation of being violent and volatile. I mean, he paints himself as a great guy. I'm a good guy. Sure, I have problems like everybody else, but no, I wouldn't hurt anybody. Whoever's telling you this is just feeding you a bunch of bull. I don't think there were two words that came out of Jeff Smith's mouth that I believed. We have someone who is violent towards women. We have someone who wants to be controlling towards women. We have someone we definitely know does not like to be rejected by women, which makes him a really good suspect because sexual assaults are power plays. I can picture him as the kind of guy that thinks he's smarter than the police. So he's the guy that's gonna set the fire and fool us and send us off in another direction.
However strong the detective's suspicions, everything hinges on where Smith was the night of the crime.
Jeff told me that he was with his girlfriend that night, after midnight. I knew he wasn't because the girlfriend said otherwise. That just solidified what I knew about this guy, and that is, he's lying, he's lying, he's lying. What's interesting, though, is he does agree to give me his blood and his hair and his saliva, knowing that it's going to be compared to the sexual assault examination of Missy Grubb. I've had guilty people over the years cooperate. The bad part about that, we don't know the answer for 6 to 8 weeks down the road. So I continue the investigation, working on my victimology, wanting to know more about Missy, wanting to know more about what her lifestyle was. Who could have done this?
Detectives learn that a colleague from the restaurant stayed with Missy in the weeks prior to her death.
His name was Charles. Charles, frankly, is probably one of the closest to Missy that we knew, other than Ivan. He was kind of down on his luck, didn't have a lot of money, needed a place to stay, and Missy, having the incredible big heart that she has, she actually allowed him to stay with her at her apartment, and he slept on the sofa.
Charles soon takes advantage of Missy's good intentions.
Charles steals the money out of her tip jar. Missy, being the good and wonderful kid that she is, she's also not going to put up with anything as well. She called the police department. The Arlington police made a report, and they actually issued a warrant for his arrest for theft. And Charles fled. We believe that he was still in Arlington at the time of her death. Obviously, the motive here is revenge. And he is certainly an individual that we need to find and talk to. But of course, we're on edge because we don't know where he's at. We found out that he's reportedly fled Texas.
If you're already focused in on an individual and they disappear or take off somewhere for an extended period of time, it would be of great interest to me if they were a suspect. The person has a lot of explaining to do as to why they didn't commit the murder.
Police now have 3 of Missy's work colleagues, all under investigation.
At this stage, Jeff Smith is still my primary suspect. We certainly are interested in waiting on lab results to come back on Ivan. And we would like to catch Charles, who is a fugitive. But we don't have forensics on him because we haven't had the opportunity.
Good police detectives will keep an open mind. If there are numerous suspects, you've got to investigate each of them equally with the hopes that at some point in the investigation, you're going to catch a break against one of them.
I go by the belief that you just don't wake up one morning and commit a crime of this nature. Not this extreme, not this demented and sick and evil.
We want to be able to efficiently and effectively find out who this offender is. As bad an individual as this person is, they need to be removed from the general population, and I'd like to keep them away from my son and daughter as well.
What happens next takes everyone by surprise.
Jeff Smith kidnapped his girlfriend. You leave the police department, you're telling me what a great, wonderful guy you are, and now he kidnaps his girlfriend. I mean, this guy is just out of control, but he's out of control in a very violent, felonious way. He is a walking time bomb. And if he's capable of doing what happened to Missy, he can do it again, especially now, because now he's really just incredibly dangerous. He was a fugitive, nowhere to be found. And he's a wanted felon, so to say that we were on edge is an understatement. And to say that there was an urgency to find Jeff Smith is an understatement.
Before Smith can be found, his terrified girlfriend surfaces.
He did eventually release her, but he didn't turn himself into the police. We found out that the girlfriend is okay, but in speaking with her, we were not able to get any information that would have led us to Jeff Smith's whereabouts.
Trying to find him was very difficult, and he was in a lot of trouble for what occurred.
At this stage in an investigation, when you have a primary suspect and you feel very comfortable that you're looking in the right direction and you can't lay hands on them, knowing how volatile they are, we had an investigative team that collectively was focused on getting Jeff Smith apprehended.
As the manhunt continues, the DNA tests on Jeff Smith and Ivan return. Both are negative.
If you're innocent, you're really glad there is DNA evidence available, because the same things that are such strong pieces of evidence to convict a killer can clear an innocent person.
We're humans. We have hope. God, I hope this is him. I hope this is him. But at the same time, we also know DNA is as solid as you can get as far as excluding somebody. I've also learned through my experience, you are usually going to clear a multitude of suspects before you ever find your actual perpetrator. Charles is still a primary suspect. We don't know where he's at, but you have to always be aware of the possibility that there are other suspects. That we could also have a predator out there that's not known to anyone. And we are on pins and needles.
Statistically, solvability continues to decrease as time moves forward. So you've got to get the offender located and prosecuted as soon as possible.
going in the many different directions we're going, was when I received a phone call from Missy's mother that completely changed the entire course of this investigation. Just like everybody else, other relatives and friends, she is just beating herself up saying, who could have done this, and trying to remember anything. And she recalled the day of the murder, Missy telling her on the telephone about a man whose name was Luis. And Luis is a 32-year-old man who lives in the apartment complex. He has a common law wife, and he has a small child that Missy babysits. Well, before the mother finished all of that, she has my attention, because this guy came out of the blue. The mother continues that Luis would come over to Missy's apartment during the early morning hours, sometimes late at night, 11, 12 at night, wanting to talk to Missy, telling Missy that he believes his wife is cheating on him. And he wants to talk to her in person because he's afraid his wife would hear him talking on the telephone.
But that on this day before the incident, he was apparently over at her apartment and they were joking around. And they had what Missy described as a sort of a pillow fight.
I'm thinking a 32-year-old man over here getting into a pillow fight. When I heard all of this, I mean, my stomach dropped.
Detectives learned that Luis Aoyo also works with Missy at the restaurant.
So he works with her, he lives in the same complex, she babysits his child, comes over late at night, and he's 32 years old and she's 19. This was jaw-dropping. We need to talk to this man. This is just not normal.
Detectives have focused their attention on the strange behavior of Missy's neighbor, Luis Aoyo.
I asked if he'd come speak with me. We sat down, he was polite, cooperative, you know, fairly good-looking guy, looks in shape, good manners, very pleasant individual, very smart individual. I explained to Luis that I was investigating the death of Missy Grubb. He projected himself as just, oh, it's horrible. He was sad. I knew her. This is really horrible. I hope you solve the case. What can I do to help? So I just started explaining to Luis what my goal was, and he immediately asked me if I found the gas can. The cause and the origin of the fire was not public, all right? No one said anything about a gas can. No reason he should have known that.
When somebody tells you that they have information that's more than what you would read in the morning newspaper, you need to sort of take another tactic and look at this person in a different way. That changed the complexion of this interview to where Detective Lenore had to advise Luis that the things that he might say could be used against him in a court.
With Missy's call to her mother confirming his visit the previous day, police need to determine if he was in the apartment the moment she died.
I explained to Luis, the way I'm going to exclude the innocent in this particular case is we have forensic evidence that will not only identify the perpetrator, but it'll exclude innocent parties. That's when Luis started getting very nervous. And he said, what evidence wasn't she burnt up? And I said, well, Luis, the problem with the perpetrator in this case is he didn't do a very good job at destroying evidence, if in fact that was his goal. Because we do have evidence. We have DNA evidence that the perpetrator left behind. But Luis, the good news for you is this DNA will also exclude you, and then I can move on. So with that said, I would like you to give me your blood and your saliva sample so that we can compare it to the DNA and get you excluded. And he said, well, I can't do this right now. I have to take my son to the park. And I said, Luis, come with me for a minute. I had Luis stand up, and we walked over to a window, and I said, "It's pouring down rain. You're not going to the park in pouring rain." He goes, "Well, I've got to go. I just remembered it. I have to leave."
It was very odd that suddenly this individual who was thought to be agreeable to having his samples taken and do whatever it would take, in his own words, to get himself eliminated as being involved in this murder, suddenly wasn't able to make the time to provide the samples.
We had no probable cause. I had no evidence to arrest him. I mean, I don't issue an arrest warrant based on my gut. I issue it based on evidence. So I said, "Well, are we going to do this?" And Luis said, "Yes, we're going to do it." And I said, "When?" And Luis says, "Call me tomorrow and we'll set it up." I said, "Okay." And he left.
With Aoyo now their top suspect, the detectives go back to the co-workers he shared with Missy.
One of the employees was talking about how Luis was so distraught over the death of Missy Grubb, and that he really hoped they'd catch the killer that raped and murdered Missy. The fact that Missy was sexually assaulted was not public. It wasn't revealed to Luis Aoyo when I interviewed him that day. We just simply said we have DNA and that it wasn't burned up. That can be anywhere. That could be anything. But he specifically said to co-workers that she was sexually assaulted. Only the killer would know that.
When police visit Arroyo's home, they hit another problem.
He had left. And at that time, his wife wasn't sure exactly where he went, but that he'd gone out the previous evening and she hadn't heard from him since then.
I had to explain to her, "Listen, I'm investigating the murder of Missy Grubb. I need to speak to Luis because he knows her. She babysits your son. Because of that, he's a suspect. What can you tell me about that night?"
So Louise's wife came to the station voluntarily and provided a lengthy written statement.
On the night of Missy's death, about 10 o'clock at night, Luis's wife heard Luis go out. Now that's not unusual because he normally goes for a jog. She's awakened later by the sound of Luis coming inside and taking a shower. In her mind, he's done his jog, but then he leaves the apartment a second time. He returns, he takes a shower again. So she gets up, she demands to know what's going on. Luis tells his wife that while he was out jogging, he heard a woman screaming. Running in the direction of those screams led him to an apartment, and he sees that the door is ajar. So he runs in there, and he sees a woman laying nude on the bed. There was blood in the middle of her chest. There was no pulse. So he attempts CPR, but he couldn't stay there because the smoke and the fire was so overwhelming. And he told his wife, "I believe that was Missy, who I saw." He didn't call 911. Why would you not call 911 after you've seen all of this? All of this was very suspicious. The bond between a husband and a wife, that's tight. And by nature, even in illegal acts, they'll want to cover for their loved one, or they'll want to protect them. I have to ask myself, well, why didn't the wife come to me and tell me this the day of the murder? Was it denial? And so as I'm explaining to her what we know, I believe that during the course of that interview with her, she just realized, my God, he did this.
The wife of Luis Arroyo's statement to police places him in Missy Grubb's apartment. They must now track him down.
She informed me that Luis is in San Antonio and he's staying with her parents. He was arrested by the San Antonio Police Department and transported to the county jail. When I came face to face with Luis, This was not the same person that I had talked to a short time earlier. Completely different human being. Incredibly withdrawn, slumped over, head down. I guess one of the ways you want to describe it is just a beaten person. I don't know what made Luis suddenly just open up as much as he did, because what's interesting is this, he does open up.
Luis started with that they were going to have consensual sex, and that it was completely agreed upon by Missy that that would occur.
He claimed that it was a tender, wonderful moment, which we know to be absolutely hogwash. That didn't happen.
He had found the knife, which was just a kitchen knife. We pretty much allowed him to indicate where he stabbed the victim.
Then he puts on what I believe is this show of falling on the floor and crawling around and acting like you're losing your mind. That was just a show. With all that said, he provided enough to solidify and to support evidence it was him, that he did do it.
With Aoyo's confession in hand, detectives put together everything they know of the events leading up to Missy Grubb's death.
At approximately 10 p.m., he leaves his apartment under the pretense of doing his jog. After 11 o'clock, he goes to see Missy. He knocks on the door. He does that all the time. She's not alarmed by it. She allows him inside. And during the time Luis Aoyo is in that apartment with Missy Grubb, he rapes and murders her. After he kills Missy, he has to do something. He has to destroy the evidence. So he gets in his car, he goes to a gas station and fills up a 1-gallon gas can. Goes back to Missy's apartment, goes into her bedroom. He douses her with gas and all around the bed, in the apartment, in the bedroom, up to the door, lights the fire, shuts the door, and leaves. He goes back home. He showers. After he showers, he wants to go back to the apartment to make sure that it's on fire. He goes back to the apartment and it's not on fire. The reason being is because there was not enough oxygen in that room from shutting the door. He sets a second fire. After that, he goes back to his apartment again. He showers, cleans up. Luis Aoyo is a textbook psychopath. I mean, this guy's a predator.
A case like this is a sad thing. It makes you angry that somebody would waste somebody else's life like this for such a thing as a sexual assault.
The DNA analysis returned, and as we expected, the matches were statistically amazing that it would be anyone else but Luis.
Despite the overwhelming evidence, Aoyo backtracks.
Luis Aoyo pled not guilty. We had a trial. The defense tried to explain the actions as something other than the psychotic predator that he is. And the jury didn't buy it and convicted Luis Aoyo of capital murder.
In January 1997, Luis Aoyo is sentenced to life without parole. Charles was never prosecuted for the theft charge. Jeff Smith was sentenced to 4 years in prison for the kidnapping.
What's justice? I mean, nothing compares to what happened to Missy Grubb. Nothing.
It would never bring back your family member. It would never bring back a daughter. But in the society in which we live, that's about all that we can hope for. That We do identify the offender and let the justice system do the rest.
I feel better knowing that Luis Arroyo is no longer on the streets. But once that sense of comfort wears off, the fear sets in that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Luis Arroyos running around out there.